Living green or sustainably is about more than saving on your electric bill and doing your part to protect natural resources. It is about a safer and healthier life for you and your family without sacrificing style, quality, or budget. This is a movement to provide all of us with clean air to breathe and water to drink, safe, healthy food to eat and places to live, and energy to run the places where we live, learn, play, and work. The Everyday Green Home Podcast helps you get the value of green for you, your family, and your community. Whether it's green homes, green living, or the people who make it happen, join me, Marla Esser Close, to learn how green and sustainability practices and products work for you and our world. Welcome to the Green Gab. This is Marla, the Green Home Coach, and I am so excited to have Tony Pratte, my longtime guest, co-host. I don't know what else to call you, Tony.
Partner in crime.
Partner in green.
Partner in just about anything.
Tony, it's been a little while since we've recorded. How about giving everybody just a quick update on you?
Well, let's see. I'm one class away from finishing up my project management program at St. Louis U.
Nice.
So that'll be fun. So now I'm looking for my next project, my next academic endeavor, which I'm going to do, but I'll be doing something.
You always are.
Yeah, I like to keep the mind active. There's nothing wrong with learning something new all the time. As far as business is still moving, even with the current situation with economy shutting down, construction is viewed as an essential business in most communities. I know there are some that are not viewing it that way, but here in St. Louis, it is being viewed as essential, so that continues. However, that only applies to new construction. We just found out today that if you have a occupied remodel going on, and as you know, we do need inspections here in St. Louis and St. Louis County, that inspectors will not enter the residence that is occupied. So they will only inspect residences that are unoccupied and under construction.
That makes sense.
It really does.
What is that going to do to inspection? Does that halt the projects?
Halt the projects, yes. That's why this really only pertains to remodels and not new construction. So if somebody's building a brand new house, well, it's not occupied till it closes anyway. So that inspector is not going to have the issue. It is specifically for remodels that we'll see that problem pop up.
So if someone had a DIY project, but they had a permit on it, then they would be unable to move forward as well.
Correct.
Wow. Okay. I hadn't seen that. And I don't know if that's happening in other communities, but it makes a lot of sense.
Well, I mean, St. Louis is very specific to this because we are very heavily regulated by, the government municipalities, and we need permits for everything. So it just depends on where you're at. If we drive 2 hours west in the middle of Missouri, permits?
Yeah.
You don't need what are you talking about?
True.
It's specific to St. Louis and Kansas City, those markets.
So every state, every municipality is going to be making these decisions for themselves.
Correct.
But I do know we've seen a lot of suggestions and recommendations for people who are entering a home in order to protect themselves and the people living in the home, follow super hygiene procedures. Like, somebody posed the issue the other day. What if I need a plumber to come in my house because there's so many people at home, the toilet might be backing up.
Right.
And that was where, a mask will protect the person from spewing out stuff. So, for instance, if somebody has the sniffles or something, wearing a mask would prohibit you from breathing out those particles, but it's not going to protect anybody from breathing them in. So there's all kinds of recommendations that really need to check the CDC guidelines, don't they?
True, but what I will tell you is what our company is doing, what I know most service providers are doing as well. One, if your employee is sick, he is staying home.
Yeah.
He is not allowed to come in. Two, if they show up to the job site and there is somebody in that household that is sick, they will not enter. So if you have
use common sense.
Yeah, if you have a stopped up toilet, you have somebody that's in that house sick, put them in the car, do something, keep them out of the house.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they will not go in.
Well, this is definitely something totally unprecedented. And I know We all are hearing it constantly, but I would love to take this opportunity, since a lot of us are going to be and already are spending a lot more times in our homes. And it's spring, spring is springing. This is a great time to start thinking about what you're doing on the outside part of your home. And I know I've been starting to think about planting a garden and getting everything cleaned up outside. And part of what comes up in that conversation is landscape, right?
Oh, yeah. What do you do with the outside? Well,
yeah.
Speaking of landscaping, my magnolias are starting to bloom.
So wait, total aside, listeners, but Tony has how old are your magnolia trees?
Oh, gosh.
They're huge.
At least 50 years old.
Yeah, these are huge magnolia trees.
Probably 70 at least.
You're going to have to send me pictures.
Like I said, they just started to pop this weekend. So I'd say about a week, they'll be full bloom.
Very nice. So one of the things with landscaping that I think a lot of us don't think of is that you have an opportunity to actually use landscape to improve the performance of your home.
Oh, absolutely.
To really kind of act as protection for your home. And I think a lot of us don't necessarily think in that way. But if you are driving around the Oklahoma or Kansas prairies, you will oftentimes see rows of trees to the north of the home or the homestead. And those trees are planted there as a windbreak, which is landscaping for energy efficiency and protection of the home and the buildings. So these techniques have been used for, I don't know, I'm guessing hundreds, if not thousands of years. I haven't looked back into it that far.
Oh, you could easily go back to times of Romans, the Greeks, the Persians, just about any great, ancient society. They figured a lot of this stuff out.
Well, exactly. And when the resources at hand are all you have, mankind and womankind have figured things out very well over the past centuries and millennia. So what I really love as part of what we get to do is finding where those techniques can come in and be useful in our own homes today. And sometimes it's married with technology, such as what you do with smart home technology, Tony. And sometimes it's just enough to stand on its own. But this whole idea of landscaping for energy efficiency is nothing new. It's a way to help control the energy flows in and out of a house and to reduce unwanted energy flows. It can be used as a way of reducing water use outdoors, stormwater management, and just really making sure that your home and the land work together more in concert, right?
Well, we've had a previous episode where we talked about, green design. And one of the first things you talk about is the site itself and the orientation of the house.
Yep.
And you love when I segue to this stuff. I know it.
The perfect setup, man.
Once you figure out, how the house is sitting on the lot, it's just like my house. My house is a north-facing house. And those two beautiful magnolia trees that were planted in the front of the house, while they're pretty for a couple weeks, once they drop the flowers and the leaves pop up, during the summer months, they are, in reality, two gigantic shades for my house. They keep the front of my house probably about 10 degrees cooler than the back of my house.
I can imagine.
It's literally, I walk out the door, I go from, the inside, which is about 68, to the front porch. The front porch is all shaded and will feel a different temperature all the way until I reach my car, which is in the sunlight. That's when I can feel about a 10 to 15 degree difference.
Wow.
So I practice passive solar shading with my house.
We think of all the trees and the bushes and all the things on our property as being pretty, as adding to the curb appeal or adding to our own enjoyment of our homes. But we don't always think about the benefits that it can provide to the home itself, which in turn provides benefits to us. And what you're talking about with shading, so not only shading windows, which is huge, especially east and west windows that get a lot of glare, but also shading your roof, especially if you have a dark roof. Shading your roof in this hot summer sun can really make a difference. So what's important is to remember that the sun is higher in the summer, lower in the winter. So by having deciduous trees, such as your magnolia, this gives it an opportunity to let the sunlight in the winter to help warm up your home, then to shade it in the summer and to keep that heat from collecting on the roof of your home and in your windows. So that's a great solution.
Absolutely. And, it's not just my two magnolia trees. I have a total of 11 trees in my land, and I've got just a small little bitty, maybe quarter of an acre lot. So I've got trees everywhere. It is one big shade tree.
Yeah.
When you look at my house during the height of the summer sun.
Well, and the other thing that's useful to shade is the hardscape, the concrete or the stone masonry. So like a patio or a driveway, especially if they're right up next to the house. So shading that can also help to just reduce the amount of heat that's all around the house in the summer. And shading really, obviously, is important in the summer. It's not such a big deal in the winter when we want the heat to warm us up a bit.
Right.
But not only can plants such as trees provide shading, you could also use trellises or arbors. Like my mom's house has this huge arbor and it's got a big grapevine on it, which gets all leafed out in the summer and it provides beautiful shading and it's really pretty to boot. So there's all different kinds of ways to shade. Trees take a while to grow big, but boy, do they pay off once they do.
Oh, yes. They're definitely a long-term plan when it comes to planning out energy efficiency.
I had to laugh. I was watching a commercial or some kind of advertisement. It said, the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago. And I'm like, well, that's kind of a bummer. And they said, and the next best time is now. So we'll go with the next best time, folks. Plant a tree. And if you can't plant a tree to shade part of your house, you can plant to help break the wind around your house. Trees, bushes, all of this can be used to help break the wind. Living in Oklahoma, oh my gosh. The wind comes sweeping across the plains.
Wasn't that a musical?
It's really real. So we do see a lot of windbreaks out here. But, the first step to this is you need to walk around your house and understand, all the different directions of your house. Are there a lot of windows? How is your house influenced by the direction that it's facing? I lived in a place once that had a west-facing front door. And it was a condo that was top story. And that door would get so hot in the mid to late afternoons that you couldn't touch it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And we finally ended up we could not put an awning because of the association, the condo association, that we were able to put a freestanding umbrella up. But you don't think about those things necessarily. You just think, it's got a beautiful view and this is a great direction. That we've got this great, a lot of us look at the views. We don't necessarily think about the other impacts that the directions can provide. So shading's a great one. It will help a lot of things. I've even shaded air conditioner compressors before to help them not have to work so hard.
Oh, that makes sense. That really does, because the hotter it is, the compressor, the more it's going to have to pump out.
So not a landscaper necessarily, but an arbor, a plant trellis, those things can be super, super helpful. And while you're at it, even if it's not landscape oriented, thinking of other ways to provide shading for your windows is a great way to help cool down your house, and your air conditioning doesn't have to work quite so hard. So 2 things we can use landscaping for on the outside of our houses, obviously, that's where landscaping is, to impact the heat flow, so shading, and then also the windbreaks. And having those bigger plants, there's some great layouts online. If you just search for landscaping for energy efficiency or landscape windbreaks, then you will find some great layouts of where to put different height plants so that you have the best protection for your home. I found one that was unique to Missouri, but it showed where to do the windbreaks, like on the northwestern sides of the home or the property, and then to use foundation plantings I think they were about a foot out, if I remember correctly, around the edge of the foundation, just to give some additional insulation. Things that we don't necessarily think about.
No, I've never really seen anything that recommended doing foundation planting. That's interesting. Mm-hmm. But I can see the benefit for it because, like you said, it's basically giving some extra insulation to the foundation, whether it's extra shade on the foundation during the summer, or if it's hugging it, that's extra warmth in the winter.
Yep, exactly. Especially if you use evergreens.
Right.
Hey, this is Marla Close, the Green Home Coach, and I am the author of Living Green Effortlessly, Simple Choices for a Better Home. And in this book, besides talking about a bunch of stuff about green and sustainability products and practices you can easily take in your home, I also talk about home maintenance and how important this is to having a home that serves you rather than you serving it. Seasonal home maintenance checklists are a big part of this, and I teamed up with colleague Tina Gleisner from Home Tips for Women to use her maintenance checklist, actually included in the book, starting on page 96. And if you have the book, look them up. But I wanted to give you a brief excerpt from the book to get you excited about why home maintenance checklists, I know that doesn't sound very exciting, but why they are so important. So, maintaining a home is actually a 3-part ongoing process: inspect, maintain, and update. To help you keep track of what you've done and plan to do, make notes on the checklist. First, inspect. If you've only got an hour to spare, pick one exterior side of the house or one room inside to inspect. Note the date you did this on the checklist and flag items needing maintenance or repairs so you can schedule time or make a list for your handyman or handywoman. Second, maintain. Keep your home safe, such as smoke detector batteries. Keep your home energy efficient, like furnace air filters, and prolong the useful life of many home features, like caulking bathroom tile. Write it down when you complete a task. Keeps you from guessing later on. And third, update. Take advantage of improved materials and fixtures. Upgrade to new building codes and evaluate when it makes more sense to make an improvement rather than repair, such as replacing a bathroom floor rather than repairing the grout. Check out the book or give me a holler and I'll hook you up online to get the maintenance checklist for yourself. If you'd like to have the entire book, please go to livinggreenbook.com for a multitude of ways to purchase it for yourself. Thanks again. This is Marla, the Green Home Coach. Well, back on the green gabbing with Tony. Tony, your magnolia tree is just a perfect example for the topics that we're talking about with landscaping for energy efficiency.
Just looking at the slide that, we're using for this conversation about, 15 to 20 feet. Yeah, mine's about 15 feet. The only difference is my trees are so big, actually reach up and over
your roof.
Oh, yeah.
That's shading more of your roof. And we're looking at a graphic, Tony and I are, that shows the typical distance a large deciduous tree from your home is 15 to 20 feet. This way, it blocks the higher summer sun and lowers the temperature in your home. While in the winter, when the leaves fall off and the sun is lower, it lets the sun and the rays and the heat through to warm up the home. So it's a great way of using nature to our advantage.
The other little ancillary effect, too, that this really won't show you is during light summer rains, you don't need an umbrella to go from your front door to your car.
Light summer rains. That all depends what part of the world you're in.
Well, St. Louis light summer rains, they only last for 4 days.
It seems like the rains we get in Oklahoma are either one extreme or the other. They're either a mist or they're belting. Well, there are a lot of resources online. One of the places that I found super helpful when I was looking for information on all this topic was the university extension programs. So, for instance, a lot of the pictures and the directions that Tony and you and I are talking through today, I actually found on the University of Missouri Extension. Have an extension program and may be a really great source of information. You can also look on the U.S. Department of Energy, and there's a lot of information up there. And an arboretum or a botanical garden in your neighborhood may also provide great landscaping for energy efficiency information for your specific region. I've found a couple of different articles on different groups related to arboretums and botanical gardens that offered a lot of resources. So check it out. There's all kinds of things out there. And you can even take it a step further and use native plants, right?
Well, that's the way to go.
Yeah.
You made a specific point just a few minutes ago. You can reach out to botanical gardens in your region. These regions will tell you the right plants to use for your specific reason.
Yeah.
We all know why we like to use native plants, right?
Oh, yeah.
Because they're born and raised and have grown up to withstand the extreme temperatures of each specific region. So if you live in an area that gets very little water, native plants are all over that. While it's great to be able to say, hey, I've got this exotic plant or exotic tree that I brought in from such and such a place, well, the reality is they don't live and they don't survive or thrive in any region except where they're native to.
Right.
Take my magnolias, for instance. The reason why they survive and thrive the way they do is, well, they're not your traditional Mississippi magnolia tree. They are a hybrid. They are born and raised to grow and thrive in the fickle Missouri climate versus the more balmy southern climate that we, associate magnolias with.
Yeah, very true. Well, and even more so, anytime you are able to use native plants, as you and I both have been big proponents of, not only is it going to be more regionally suited and better adapted for the climate where you are, it's also going to use less water. It's not going to need all of the chemical support as fertilizers or herbicides because it's already indigenous to the environment. There's already beneficial insects that help it and that it is resistant to. So it's a good investment. And I know finding that investment that's going to last a long time is something that we're all really interested in. And especially right now, while we're in our homes and our yards, probably more than we have been in the past. You've got a little bit more time to think about the best way to do this right now. So take advantage of it and use that information to the best of your ability. There is one national resource that has been helpful to me in the past, and that's the Grow Native website. So you might look that up and see how it applies for you to find some of the native plants in your own region. So it's just a great thing to do. It just supports the local environment, just makes a lot of sense in so many ways to use plants that are native to your region.
We always talk about one of the tenets of sustainable philosophies is the low maintenance aspect of it, right?
Oh, so true.
With native plants, they're plant and forget. You don't have to maintain.
Yep.
They will maintain themselves.
And honestly, if they do really well, then you'll have enough the next year for your neighbors and family to have splits off of it and share the wealth. Because a lot of them grow prolifically once they are in their native environment, which they love. So
sounds like my trees.
Yeah.
Every year I find a new one.
Yeah. Well, this whole idea of reducing water use, I think, is really where it got a lot of the conversation started about native plants. And that is super important because we really do want to conserve our drinking water for drinking and not watering our yards and our plants. But there's so many other benefits to native plants as well. So you really get it's more than a twofer. Sounds a lot more fun than 19 or whatever number it is.
I will be totally honest, Marla. I've been in this house since 2004. I don't own a sprinkler.
That's awesome.
I've never, granted, this house was built in 1943. I have a well-established lawn.
Yeah.
But everything in this house the landscape side is made to live in this climate.
Mm-hmm. Well, 1943, we didn't have all of the exotic imports that we have now.
True. I let nature take care of my irrigation.
I guess you could say it's the lazy person's landscaping.
You know what? When you talk about landscaping and myself, yes, it is.
Yeah.
I hate yard work, so whatever's easy is going out there.
No, I hear you. And in most cases, not all cases, but in most cases, native plants are much easier because they thrive on their own. And while you're planning out your garden or whatever else you want to plant outside, zone the plants by their water needs. You can have more garden or more bushes and less turf because a lot of the times turf is what needs the most care. It needs water. We think it needs chemicals. It needs to be mowed. There are turf alternatives that are much more sustainable and don't need to be mowed as often. We've tried to grow one. It did not like the Oklahoma clay. So we are looking at some other options. And if you do have watering options in your yard, like an automatic sprinkler system, there are some great high-tech options that you can put on it. One of my houses in St. Louis, we had a rain switch. So it had a little, almost like a rain gauge on it. And once it had a certain amount of water in it, it would automatically switch off the sprinklers. Because it is so frustrating to me to be driving around in the rain and see the automatic sprinklers on. It's like, that's just such a waste. Or sprinklers that are watering the sidewalks and the driveways and the streets. more than the actual lawn and gardens. So, use a little common sense here, folks, and get your sprinkler systems set up so they actually are benefiting what they're supposed to be, which is the plants. There's great sprinkler head options now that use lower water or that are lower to the ground. Like in Oklahoma, it's so windy, using the high, tall sprinkler options, the sprinkler heads, half of it blows away. So you may be watering your neighbor's house more than you're watering your own lawn.
Yeah, I can see that just wreaking havoc on planned irrigation.
Yeah. And water can get expensive. I mean, we sometimes, 10? I've seen people say their bills go up as much as 10 times in the summer. That's a lot. So finding a better option is always going to be a good alternative, I think. And, we've really started using more of the drip systems, the drip hoses. And that's even better because the water's going directly where it's needed, rather than going up in the air and evaporating, some of it evaporating.
I first studied the drip systems during my sustainability program at Harvard when we got into sustainable agriculture. And this was 2011, maybe, when they were really starting to look at those. And it's fascinating. It really works.
Yeah.
For anybody that's not familiar.
Well, and it allows you to water more so that
onto the root.
Go deeper.
Yeah, the drip system allows you to put the water onto the root where it really needs to go versus the leaf of a plant. It's not the leaf that gets it. It's the water has to get down to the root. It's a little bit more controlled. So instead of just throwing water everywhere, it really zeroes in to the point or the crops or whatever you're watering.
Right.
And more water gets absorbed that way into the plant.
Obviously, there's pros and cons with everything. But if you have the option to do drip watering, definitely look into it and see if there's part of your yard even that use drip systems in. We actually have one that hooks up to our hose bib on the outside, and we were able to put a timer between the hose bib and the drip hoses. It's on automatic. And anytime you can use a controller or a timer is going to take the behavioral aspect out of the middle and just allow it to operate on its own, not to mention that it's easier. And like you, we're all in for easy wherever possible, or easier. It's not always easy, but easier. 5 myths of green homes are 5 things that you probably believe about green homes that may be costing you thousands of dollars. Which myth do you hear the most? Get your copy of 5 Myths at greenhomecoach.com and click on the button for 5 Myths of Green Homes. You can also connect with me on Facebook at Green Home Coach and let me know the green home myth you hear the most. I'll also share tips, products, and resources. Be sure to download your copy of 5 Myths of Green Homes now and then check back to learn more. There's some great options out there, though, folks. So while you're sprucing up your home this spring, definitely something to take a look at. And then, of course, there's the other side of water, and that's the water that comes in with the rain.
Lots of water.
If we only had the water when and where we need it, right?
Well, you remember where you used to live here.
I know.
Every year, every spring, we flood.
Oh, yeah.
Just because. Take our water, please.
We seem to get it all at once, or not at all. So, for instance, we'll get a very rainy spring here in Oklahoma City as well. And then by July, we're like so thirsty and everything's turning brown. And that is just the way it works, which is a great reason to have a rain barrel, for instance, or a rain garden, or both. Rain gardens will help to percolate the water back into the ground. And so they're a great way to hold that extra water that may be in your yard or your property.
Well, and don't forget that most or a lot of municipalities have mandated rain gardens for new construction. So it's maybe not so much in a subdivision, but if you're building a custom offsite home, you're putting in rain gardens.
I'm actually even starting to see some retention basins that look like they're more rain garden than retention basin. And I don't know if that's really the case, but I'll notice that they'll have plantings down in the bottom oftentimes.
Have you noticed any kind of rain retention like that being put in Oklahoma by your sewer departments?
Not yet.
Because we're starting to see a lot of that in St. Louis.
Yeah, we haven't seen as much with rain gardens here, but there's a brand new park downtown called Scissortail Park that I believe they did put some rain gardens in. So, and I know they've got a few out at the zoo. It's kind of how it started catching on in St. Louis. We saw it in some of our public areas.
Yeah.
And then it started spreading more from there. I think Myriad Gardens has some too. And I think they teach some classes on it. So I'm hoping we'll start to see more. And then the other end of the spectrum is the rain barrels, to go ahead and harvest the water that's coming off of your roof or an outbuilding. But you do need gutters and downspouts in order for rain barrels to be most efficient. There is typically a rain barrel program here in Oklahoma City, and I think in many communities, where the city water division will help to acquire rain barrels. Well, they actually will have a collection point. You pay for them, and then there's like a day of pickup. And there's some really great rain barrels that are made from repurposed food barrels. So these big, huge, 50 or 60 gallon barrels that they use like for olives and can't remember what else, oils, maybe not oils.
Were you able?
Olives are the ones I think of, but they repurpose them and make rain barrels out of them.
Were you able to see the one they had at International Builder Show where the barrel itself actually went underground?
No.
700 gallon rain barrel.
Oh my gosh.
It was massive. It was really cool. But I do think it's important that we explain rain gardens are to help the water get back into the sewer systems without
the ground,
overburdening the stormwater systems, whereas rain barrels are for the use of the homeowner on their own properties.
Correct. And both of them are a way to mitigate some of the stormwater runoff on your property and to help lighten the load on our infrastructure. But they do have different ways of being beneficial. You're absolutely correct. And if you do have gutters and downspouts, rain barrels are a great option. Plus, you can use the rainwater to water your garden. So you're getting more of that healthy water. But do make sure that your gutters and downspouts stay clean, because otherwise everything backs up. And then none of it works the way that it's supposed to. So there's great resources for this online. Just go take a look. Google search, whatever your favorite search engine is, and you will find resources in and around your community. I'm actually seeing a lot more rain barrels pop up in our neighborhood even.
Really?
Yeah, so it's kind of cool. We were going to get ours this year, and of course, everything has been delayed due to the pandemic. So I'm not sure if we'll get them in this spring, hopefully next spring.
It totally makes sense to see, more Western communities getting them because, it gets warm down there.
Yeah, it does. And we need, in the middle of July, we're needing water, definitely, in and around our yards. It's a good time. The other thing to just kind of wrap up this conversation as we're heading here towards the end is remember all the stuff that you put on and in and around your yard does, have an impact on the people, the pets, and can wash into our water systems. So please be very mindful. There's some great organic options out there for fertilizer and soil amendment. There's a podcast on the Green Gab about something called lime. A company called First Saturday Lime is used as pest control around your home. So there's actually an all-natural way to do pest control. We've also found there's a lot of really great information on the internet about how to naturally control pests. A lot of that can be done with companion planting. So there's a lot of options that don't require chemicals. Number one is going to save you money. And number two, should do it the other way around, Health and safety and wellness to me comes first. But there's a great opportunity in front of us. And I'm a huge believer in making the most of the situation. So while you're around your yard and your home this spring, you've got an opportunity to do things a little more or a little different. And I hope this has given you some ideas. Tony, you got new ideas for your yard?
Well, no, because my yard is ready to go.
It's all done.
It's all done.
I know.
However, I will say this, a lot of people I'm sure are going to be chomping at the bit to just get out of the house.
Yeah, get outside.
And as it gets warmer, I know it's supposed to be up in the 70s this week in St. Louis. So not tomorrow, but by Wednesday and Thursday, 60, 70 out here, magnolias blooming. I'm going to have some nice pictures.
Nice. Well, hey, y'all, check the show notes for links for some of the resources that we've talked about. Thanks for tuning in with us. And Tony, it sure is fun to have you on the program again.
It's always fun to do this. I miss our days from when we were in studio every week, and that was always fun.
Well, at least we have this.
We have technology. Technology changes.
I got you. Well, hey, all you out there, thanks for tuning in and have a great green day. That wraps this episode of the Everyday Green Home Podcast. Ready to use what you learned? Get the show notes with all the resources mentioned in this episode. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast app so you never miss an episode. Thanks for listening and for leaving a review. And remember that living a little better and greener is easier than you think.